left the city of Myrtle Beach for the authority. He is no longer officially on the TAC, which means we need a new co-chair. So it is up to all of you to nominate and vote on a new co-chair.
Well, since I've abandoned
You
the
did
group,
abandon the TAC, yes.
I have a nomination if the committee would like to hear it. I'd like to nominate Kevin Blake. Kevin is an outstanding member of this group, and I think he'd serve in that capacity.
Payback's tough, isn't it? Payback's tough. Thank you so much.
All right, so Kevin's been nominated and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations,
Can I vote?
Kevin. And now we're going to turn over the presentation to Kevin. Ready?
That was quick.
Okay, I do have,
Alice,
yes.
we need to have a call report separate. He don't know everybody in here, so.
Oh, we want to do it around the room. Okay, so Emily, do you want to start and we'll just work our way around?
Sure. I'm Emily Tucker. I'm with HGR and been with the solid waste management update.
And I'm Allison Trulock with NewGen. I'm also helping with the management plan update.
I'm Philip Westmoreland with HDR.
David Gilroy with Lorraine County.
Kevin Blake, North Myrtle Beach.
And co-chair, anyway.
John Adair, Town of Surfside Beach.
Tom Roth, Lorraine County.
Steve Gosnell, Lorraine County.
Jerry Monday, Coastal Carolina University. Bishop Red, City Hall.
Rick Fowler, Morgan County.
And Linda Tudor.
Go to the back or front?
I'm Bob Kemp, I'm with the Solid Waste Authority.
Oh, I'm Solid Waste Authority.
Jan Bidding, Solid Waste Authority. Esther Murphy, Solid Waste Authority.
Stephanie Todd, Solid Waste Authority.
Ken Meyer, Solid Waste Authority.
Mike Duffy, Solid Waste Authority.
So I would just ask you guys, so since I'm trying to take the record, if you could say your name and then speak, it'll make it easier for me to take this down, because basically, if everybody's all talking all at once, I'm not gonna know when I go back over the audio to try to make a transcript out of this, I'm not gonna know who's talking. So it just makes it easier to have a clean record if everyone could just speak one at a time, please, and try to say who you are when you talk. And
That's tough.
I know that's hard to do, trust me, I do, but it'll make my job a whole heck of a lot easier. Thank you.
Okay, this is Allison talking, and I'm going to get started on the PowerPoint that we have today. It's long, but we'll move through it quickly. We've got a few different speakers today. I've got our agenda, which is also in front of you all in paper form on our agenda. We're going to just have a quick slide to remind those of you who've received the data request from me that I am anxiously awaiting the data. We'll go through, Mike's going to give us an overview of the authority responsibilities. We've got a few different updates, one from Philip and others on the infrastructure projects. And then Emily's going to give us an overview of the 2019 characterization study results and a comparison from 16 to 19 so we can see how the characterization has changed. We'll do a quick overview of some of the challenges and opportunities in the industry as a whole. And then we'll get into some of the general goals and strategies for the plan's update in broader detail and then in nitty-gritty detail. And we'll get as far as we can get today. Whatever we don't get through today, we can come back to at the next meeting. One of the goals as we get into the stuff from the 2019 plan is if there's more research that any of us need to be doing on topics that you guys want to consider for this plan, we want that to come up today so we can do that research and bring it back to you in the next meeting. So we'll have 2 more meetings after this one. So by that 3rd meeting, we need to have made our way through all of those goals and strategies for the plan. So be thinking of ideas of what else you might want to bring to the plan as we're going through what's already in it. So here's my NAG slide. Again, for those of you who have received this from me, there was an email that I sent back on July 14th. I tried to set it up, it's in a Word document, and I pasted in there. Here's what we're saying about you in the plan right now. Update this text if you want to update it. So I've tried to make it as easy as possible for those of you that are with cities or towns or the university. So if you can just email me back that Word document, that would be great. There may be a couple other questions to answer in there as well. So this will just give us what we need to update what we're saying about your jurisdiction in the plan document itself. Has everybody seen that email? I'm looking at a few, okay. Just have some nods, so get that back as soon as you can. Any questions about what you guys saw in that email? Not yet, okay, I'm sure you're riveted by the Word document and you'll get it back to me soon.
So what are you looking for as far as Kevin Blake, North Myrtle Beach. What are you looking for as far as like growth areas and annexation? Do you want a map? Do you want just general
If you
writing?
can send a map, that'd be great, but just a general description is how it usually, has been put in the plan, but it would be great to be able to see it too, so we may have room to add that as well. Good question. Anything else on the data request? Now, Mike is gonna give us an overview of the authority responsibilities, and I think he's gonna turn his phone off before he gets up here, and then he's gonna walk us through everything they do.
We felt that this TAC meeting is a little different, but we felt like, my name's Mike Bethel. So we felt like it'd be good just to give everybody an overview of what the Solid Waste Authority does. So I'm gonna go through this thing pretty quick. Please stop me and ask any questions that you got, but it'll give you an overall view of everything that we do. Okay, that's done. So Solid Waste, Horry County Council created Solid Waste Authority in 1990, and it's, we have a capital budget of about $29 million for FY '22, a capital budget of about $17 million. That's the landfill. Most of you guys have been on it, looked at it. So we need to, I do this to a presentation. This is our MSW waste, class 3. MSW waste landfill. We currently have capacity through 2043. We're working on an additional 10 years of capacity to carry through 10, and we're in the permitting process of that now. The last permit of MSW that we did took us 10 years. So we started now. The new cell that we would be building in will be sometime in 2038, 39, 40, based on population growth. So we'll take those growth factors in the population. Every bit more we can recycle out means the landfill lasts longer. And that's why we push recycling. C&D capacity, we currently got a new permit. We're not utilizing that area yet. The capacity for C&D will be, will no longer be available somewhere around 2030. So about 2030, the C&D landfill will be full, and a decision will have to be made what to do with that waste at that point in time. Most private industries mix it. They put MSW and C&D together. It's been the philosophy of the authority not to do that. So at some point in time between now and 2030, there's going to have to be a decision, because I don't think there's any places left on this landfill, on this footprint, that's available for any more expansion. That's our engineers. I didn't think we had any for this one, but we made it work somehow. And engineers come pull rabbits out of the hat once in a while. So we have a C&D processing factory. While we do that, try to make the landfill last longer, we currently run anywhere from 70 to 75% recycling rate for all the material that goes through there. So we take out all the wood and stuff and do it. This was built about 2011, 12. We're taking in around, I think last month we took in about 1,800 tons. We're in the process of upgrading it to be able to increase the volume going through it. Our machinery currently hampers us from increasing it. So we bought, the board gave us permission to buy, and we bid for another piece of equipment that allow, we do about 9 tons an hour. We'll move us up to as high as 25 tons an hour going through the facility. So at that facility, we pick out cardboard. I can mess this thing up. Oh, here it is. Wrong. So we pick out cardboard, wood, plastics, metal, bottles, cans, concrete, and dirt. What we get out there. So that facility does pull out all that material. A lot of times we pull out paint buckets, so we pull out paint buckets and sell paint buckets. So anything that's called rigid plastics, we put them and carry them to the MRF, and they bale them and we sell them. So anything we can get out of it, we do. But we feel like our recycling rate's pretty good at 70 to 75% of the material going through there.
Who are you selling the buckets and the hard plastics?
We put a bid out when we get a load, and they go from anywhere, all over the place.
countries, or is it?
Some of them sometimes they go overseas, a lot of them's going to Georgia. Right now, there's a plant in Georgia that takes them. So all of our materials, our MRF, we bid out. So if we got a load, we bid it, the man is gonna give us the most money before he gets it. We have buyers that we send emails out and say, we got a load of this, a load of that, submit your bid for. So all the concrete that we get in, we take in concrete. We're always building roads on the landfill. So we take the concrete, have it crushed, and use it for road bed. So yard waste, we make into compost, sell compost. Clean wood, we do it for boiler fuel and mulch. We make colored mulch. We sell a tremendous amount of colored mulch. We just got into that real good. We've been doing it for years, started pushing it this past year, and we've really sold it a good bit of mulch, colored mulch. Landscapers come in here, bring us their yard waste, take out mulch when they leave. In any of the cities in here, some of the cities use them and stuff. It is way cheaper than buying it wholesale. We sell it for $60 a ton, but it'll equate to about $14 a yard. A lot of cities use it, and we're trying to get all the cities to use it. We will haul it to you if you buy a tractor trailer load at the time for that price. So, North Myrtle Beach this year, we transferred six tractor trailer loads in about 3 or 4 weeks. We have the ability to color and transfer. We have a food waste composting, so the schools get to work with the schools and the college to do it through smart recycling, private industry, and we do food waste composting as well. This is what you can see here where they unload it, bring it in, that's how they bring it in, and we mix it and then compost it. We're lucky when you talk to a lot of people talk about they can't get rid of their compost, we can't keep enough. Why? We make sure it's right before we sell it. If the temperature and it has completed its composting capabilities, we don't screen it, we don't sell it. We just say we're out. Because ain't nothing you can do no worse than give somebody a yard full of weed.
And I'll vouch for that, because I called about 3 weeks ago for a load, and you were out.
We've been out for over 2 months.
Boy said it'd be 2 or 3 weeks before it come in.
Yeah. So we don't sell it. Used to, we would go try to make enough to keep the customers going. We don't do that anymore. And we do have it tested with the U.S. Compost Council. So we got a good quality product. You'd be amazed at the number of organic farmers there are in Horry County. Come by the dump truck load. Here's our statistics. We took in 286,000 tons in FY21. It's more than that this year. Mixed construction, 130,000 tons. Yard waste, 35. C&D, 21,000. And other materials at 18,912, which is concrete, shingles, tire tonnage, and all the other stuff. So totally, we take in about 492,000 tons a year in here of some type of product. We also have an environmental stewardship program. So we test the swamp. Are not required to, but we do. We know what the water is coming into the landfill and what the water is going out of the landfill. We do that not as a requirement by law, but as so we know what's going on in the swamp, because the swamp is always looked at and stuff, so we always want to make sure. And you can see groundwater sampling around the landfill, which is required, about 46 samples per year. Our landfill gas sampling, we have to do that 2 times a year. Leachate samples are 52, and the voluntary swamp samples are 26 per year. And it's good to have that data when people start asking questions, and they will when they don't. Oh, yeah. Gas well, green power. To give you all an idea, currently we're providing power for about 2,000 homes. In a partnership with Santee Cooper that's been since 2000. We're in the process now of re-looking at that, of what to do with our landfill gas. There's several different new technologies out there. We get paid for it. So it brings revenue into us. Not enough to support the system, but there's all kinds of factors in the collecting methane gas, such as your Title V, all your permits required by federal government. We estimate at about 2026, we will fall under federal guidelines because of the volume of waste and the amount of emissions. You gotta realize we check the emissions on this landfill every year. We will fall up under federal guidelines. What it is costing the Solid Waste Authority today to manage their methane gas will double, if not triple. Because there's such things as if a well in a pump in one of these wells go down, you have so many hours to get it fixed. Don't matter if it's on Sunday. You have so many hours to get it fixed. There's certain requirements that you will have to do, and you will have to have the manpower and equipment on site to do that with. We figure we're gonna fall up under those guidelines, and that's based on our emissions somewhere in the year 25 to 26, based on where we see the trends at now. And that's gonna be a big challenge for the Solid Waste Authority over the next few years. So we're trying to plan for it now, hire people, get them in place, trying to sort of start working towards those requirements now so that it won't be a drop dead. And here you are, you got all these requirements to get done. Have to hire a bunch of engineering firms and stuff to help you out. Household hazardous waste. So we do have our household hazardous waste program. We are not required by law to keep it out of the landfill. Two, so was made years ago to keep it out. As long as it's residential, you can put it in the landfill, except for the batteries, you can put everything else over here you see in the landfill. We choose not to do that, and we ship out once a month, sometimes twice a month, based on the volume that comes in. You'll be amazed at the amount of paint that we do. But we also take the paint, the latex paint, and use it for alternative daily cover. So every day we have to seal the face of the landfill. Got newspaper, certain kind of chemicals we use to seal it, vector control. We mix latex paint with it. What about DHEC? Helps us seal the landfill off. You'd be amazed at how well it seals it off to keep the emissions from going through the night with that paint in it. Give you an example, because we use the paint, we probably save $100,000 a year in product we would have to buy to do it with by just mixing the paint with it. We use like a seed sprayer, that's what we use to seal the landfill with every day. Our community projects, we help pick up with along in Horry County, 8 miles of Highway 90 in paper. And we're constantly, if we see something out there, we get calls from the residents, and they know we'll pick it up, and they'll call, and we go pick it up. So it's not just going out there and picking it up, we're constantly picking up. We have disaster debris sites. So the Solid Waste Authority has a cooperative purchasing agreement that allows all governmental entities, including the schools, any government entity within Horry County, to be able to become part of that cooperative purchasing agreement in the event of a storm. It helps us to be ready, FEMA ready, in the event that we have one. Hopefully we don't. But if we do, we want to be ready, and we have sites available throughout the county in order to be able to get material in quick. Right now, they're already approved by DHEC. We can start taking material there immediately. Of course, we'll always start taking it at the landfill first, because we want to try to control what's coming in, and then we move around as the volume, we determine where the volume's at and where it's needed. We work closely with the cities and the counties in that area. We have a location on Highway 90, which this is at the Murph, and the one, there's a bigger field in the back. This one's at Highway 57, as long as that's a soccer field. We have an agreement with the county, and they use it for soccer fields and maintain it. We don't have to. We have a 220-acre tract up in Green Sea that has been used. The state used it a couple of times. We determined several years back that it was costing us to keep it maintained, and we decided to give it to, or rent it to a farmer, and the farmer rents it, plants crops on it, and our agreement is we can take control of the site within 48 hours in the event of a storm. It has to be a pretty good sized storm to be utilized Green Sea. Most of the time it's the state that uses it because of, they clean the highways up that area, and they always want to use it. So, but it's a site that we have up there ready to go. Back in Horry County. So of course the county has 25 now recycling centers in the county. So, and this is all the material they take into the centers. That program's been working well for many years. It started out in 1990. The first 7 of them was built by 1992. Made it to 25 currently. Municipal recycling programs, these are the cities and municipalities that currently have recycling programs in place. We do have a collection and hauling department, Solid Waste Authority. We haul recyclables, commingled and cardboard, office paper. So if you got an office and you want to recycle office, we'll sell you a cart and we'll pick it up for free. You've got a commercial establishment that needs cardboard, we'll rent you the dumpster for $28 a month and pick it up as many times as long as it's full. We do commingle mix in them as well. And of course, we have roll-off containers at a lot of locations throughout the county, and we rent that dumpster to you, and then we haul it for free. We determine the schedule, not the person, because we want it as full as we can get it. We don't want to be running up and down the road chasing empty containers. This is our material recycling facility. It was built in 2008. And this is the sort line. So we bring all the material in there. It's a commingled single stream facility, and we sort it out by motion machine. We have done some updates. We have now, as the workforce, about 2 years ago, we spent about $3 million in this project. It has computerized sorting in it now. So a computer will sort and determine what is paper, what is not paper, and it'll sort it by taking air and blowing it in different directions. So we'll do all of that. And it also sorts PT from HDPE. It'll sort those different things. You can see, so we do cardboard, milk jugs, Pepsi-Cola bottles, that's aluminum. So we also sort non-USB containers, non-UBC containers, I'm sorry. So anything that's aluminum, cans, pie pans, those kind of things. Before, it's always been that you had to just do used beverage cans, and they're real strict about it. But now we have the ability to get rid of all the other aluminum, non-UBC aluminum. We have the ability to get rid of those. We found the market several years back, and we get an average of about $650 a ton for it. So we also do glass. We have a hard time keeping glass. People buy it. And people get mad when we don't have it. So we always call and tell them to make sure they call and make sure we got it before they come. It's an aggregate, so a lot of them's using it for French drains. Some people's putting it in driveways, but they do use the aggregate. And we use the sand on the landfill roads. That's steel cans, office paper, mixed paper. That's mixed paper magazines and stuff like that. So commingled, we took in around 19,000 tons, cardboard 58, electronics 837, office paper, and phone books. Our recycling rate for Horry County is 27.77% in FY21. So we last year was probably the best year at the MRF as far as revenue I know of since I've been here. We were selling milk jugs for over $2,000. It was selling more than what aluminum was selling for. PET, when the pandemic happened, PET went to over $1,000 a ton, and I've never sold it since it sold for over $250. Our revenue, budgeted revenue last year was supposed to be around 3.5 million. We did 6 million. And everything good, but times have changed. Last month, I sold PET bottles at $60 a ton. The market went down drastically. It dropped down. Aluminum's dropped down. HDPE has dropped. They're all down now where they were over $1,000 to $2,000 a ton is down at 100. Which we have been telling everybody, you know, we can't budget $6 million for revenue next year. It ain't gonna happen. I don't see it coming, you know, so we adjusted our revenue forecast for this year. Right now, if it continues like it is now, we'll struggle to get to what we got budgeted for this year. We have a public education program. As many of y'all are aware, we do brochures. We got, I think, you can see all these. This is some of the programs that we do, such as Gun in the Greens. We work with a lot of cities doing that. Already elected last year. There are a lot of campaigns going on in the community. We have public education, Talking Trash, been a successful program. We train, as our lobbyist told us one time, we're training 3,000 new environmentalists a year. So, and it works good. We provide tours for schools. We pay for the gas for them to get here if they apply for it. We pay for a substitute teacher to help them out, to get in there to be able to train these kids. And we do 50+ tours a year, and just school kids. This is our program within the school, so we pick up our office paper, and then of course we have the CAT program, which is Cafeterias Against Drug Trash, and they put them in here, and we pick them up for free. Across the schools. There's a Talking Trash pop art. We do pop art. It's amazing to me sometimes what they do. I don't know, is that the car right there? Remote control car he made out of bottle caps or something? So that was neat. I thought that was real neat. Scholarships. We offer scholarships in each school to the tune of can get up. All high schools can file. Somebody within the school can file for a scholarship, and we've done those scholarships, and we give out $156,000 in scholarship money. The store. So the house up here, the road is called the store. We got a partnership with Horry County Council on Aging to open that up as a store. We think it's one of the best things we've seen going around for the community. Any profits made from this store goes to Meals on Wheels. Seniors. Sometimes those Meals on Wheels will be the only time these people that's homebound see somebody in a given week. It's also a welfare check when they do it. So that money goes into that, and they have a net profit of almost $60,000. And a meal costs about $2.25. There's a lot of meals for people in this county. Electronics, I'm gonna start this off and I'm gonna give it up. Electronics, we do about 1,000 tons a year currently. We process them for cities in the county. State has implemented a new program that we filed to be a part of, and I'm gonna let Mr. Ed get up here and tell y'all what this program is going to do for the county.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about electronics a little bit. I promise I only got about a half hour worth of notes here, so short, Danny. I mean short. Just real quickly, Ed Marr with Solid Waste Authority. Happy to say I'm with the Solid Waste Authority now. I'm very excited about the new opportunity here. Just a real brief history on where we are at today. Beginning back in 2011, and I'm going to read the name of this act, and I'm going to have a quiz at the end. If you can remember it, there's prizes available to you. But the actual name of our act in South Carolina is the South Carolina Manufacturer Responsibility and Consumer Convenience Information Technology Equipment Collection and Recovery Act.
What's the acronym for that?
It's too long. I can't even get that. So, if you can remember that at the end, there are millions of prizes waiting you for remembering that. We also now call it the E-Waste Act. As of the 2014 revisions we did, everybody was tired of saying that long name. So about 2014, everybody really started calling it the E-Waste Act because we had revised it, and that's what it's affectionately known as now. Back in 2016, DHEC developed the regulation that covered electronics. Basically, it banned certain electronic waste from the landfill, computer monitors, televisions, computers, and printers. And it put requirements on the manufacturers for recovering these materials based on the sale of the number of sales that they did in South Carolina. And it set the standard for recycling devices. You had to go to an R2 certified recycling vendor. You had to prepare the materials in a certain manner. All of those things were developed into the regulation, best management practices. In December of 2021, this was the sunset date that we were facing coming into this year. Or last year, excuse me. By December 31st of last year, had the law sunsetted, the ban would have been in place. And we would have had all the responsibility for managing those materials, and the manufacturers would be out. And it would have been left to us to manage that material. So in recognition of that, we decided to work on extending the sunset law. So in late 2020, DHEC was requested to address the electronics recycling issues in the law and to extend the sunset clause to allow time for the counties to make changes. In January of 2021, we began stakeholder meetings. Counties, municipalities, representatives from the manufacturers, recyclers, professional associations, and other interested parties began meeting, and DHEC facilitated these meetings. The authority was part of those. And we talked about the law, what worked, what didn't work, how do we move forward, what do we need to do to make changes to it. March of 21, the stakeholder group said, we really need to get this thing extended. The end of the year is coming up. So we had a 2-year extension recommendation to come out of the group. And in May of that year, Government Master signed the bill extending the sunset date to December 31 of 2023. In June of 21, a smaller group of the stakeholders, they began meeting to analyze the e-waste programs from across the country and try to figure out what's going to work best for South Carolina. And after several months of us meeting, we kind of said, well, it looks like the Illinois program that's out there seems to be most closely related to how we manage materials in the state and how we probably should move forward. So by late 2021, DHEC staff had developed draft language for inclusion in the E-Waste Act, as well as a report of findings from our stakeholder group process. Then in January of 2022, House Bill 4775 was introduced. And then on June 17th, the revised law was put into place. That's kind of a brief history of where we were and where we are now. So the new law is in place. And just to give you an idea of the administrative structure of this, because it's a little convoluted, but there is an electronics recycling representative organization, an ERRO. And that started in 2014 here in South Carolina. No staff, but there's a board of manufacturers. All the manufacturers working together to meet their obligations through the state law for how much material they have to recycle. And then in 2018, the ERRO formed a manufacturers clearinghouse in response to the Illinois program. Very similar to how we were operating, but they created the ERRO, used to be the representative organization. They had to have more acronym on there, so we have the ERRO now. And then the clearinghouse ultimately was selected, or had selected NCER, the National Center for Electronics Recycling, to administer the program. Basically, the folks that are going to be doing the reporting and monitoring of the program for the manufacturers. They're a 501c3 organization that was built and was established in 2005, and they manage programs across the country. So they have a lot of experience in managing these e-waste programs. And South Carolina will be the second state in the country that has a manufacturer clearinghouse approach to our programs. So what does this mean for everyone in the room who utilizes the Solid Waste Authority for the recycling needs? Not a whole lot. Materials are still going to be brought here, they're still going to be processed, and they're still going to be shipped out. The difference is now we are going to be working, because we're opting in to the program, we are going to be working with an assigned manufacturers group. So the clearinghouse approach will submit a plan to the state and say, here are the groups that are going to be working around the state, and here's who's going to be working with what group. And by the way, there can only be one clearinghouse in the state. So that clearinghouse has already been established. That clearinghouse is going to establish the percentage requirements for the manufacturers based on the formula. Essentially 80% of what they sold in the state last year is their recycling requirement for the next year. The clearinghouse establishes the number of sites in the county. Horry County right now, we are the one site that I know of that are accepting materials as part of this program. The individual municipalities collect their materials, bring them here, and for the most part. And only counties and jurisdictions can be the opt-in. Many of you may have received a notice about opting in. Really, it's the county that will be the opt-in if they choose to. Some counties, if they have a contractual arrangement, may or may not opt in this year, just depends. Our contract kind of coincides with the way that the program's going to be implemented. Ours runs out at the end of this year, so we're going to, and we have already, Mr. Knight's already signed off on the opt-in form. We'll be participating in the program. And generally speaking, in Illinois, as an example, about half of the state has opt-in counties that are working through the clearinghouse, and the other half of the state are private programs. So the the manufacturing programs that are already working with municipalities, other counties who decide not to opt in, maybe some retailers, they'll continue those relationships, but those will be separate from the clearinghouse. The clearinghouse will have our own set of rules for how we participate, and then those that are not as part of the process will have to manage their own materials. So the materials that we're going to accept stay the same. We're going to be taking in all the computer components, computer printers, monitors, TVs. The ERRO, however, is only required to take computer monitors and televisions. It'll be up to us to negotiate for the other materials, the computers themselves and the printers. Now, it is believed that because computers are actually probably where you make some of the revenue, you can actually get rid of computers, that they'll want those materials as well. But we won't know until we start talking to the manufacturing group we're assigned to. And those items will be collected at no charge, the TVs and the monitors. Biggest part of the waste stream probably. I don't know about the other municipalities. I can tell you for the city, when we were sending out truckloads of material, probably 95% of the load was going to be computers, monitors, and TVs. The rest, there might be one pallet of computers or maybe a Gaylord full of the mice and keyboards and stuff like that, but most of it was computer monitors and televisions.
And can I ask a question?
Sure.
When you were talking about the e-waste being assigned to manufacturers, is that something that's already been in place, or is that coming with this new extension for the manufacturer's responsibility?
It's coming with that new extension. So essentially the clearinghouse, what they're going to do is look at the state and what's going on today. And the manufacturers are going to be saying, all right, here's the relationships that we already, the contracts or the working relationships that we have in place. So for example, we're using Powerhouse right now. If Powerhouse is being used by the manufacturer group that's assigned to this area, then Powerhouse will probably work with that group. If not, we're gonna be assigned, or we're gonna be given a group that we're gonna work with.
So the state's kind of assigning who's going to be where, working with those manufacturers.
Again, if you don't have loads that are at 18,000 pounds, we can get a fee up to $600 for transportation costs. Supplies are going to be provided by the clearinghouse, just like they're supposed to be now. And then, again, the counties or the opt-in folks are going to have to negotiate with the manufacturer group that they're assigned to. They're going to try to work it out and make it so that everybody works with the same group if they can, but it just may not work out that way. The timeline on the go forward is that the manufacturers are going to be signing agreements with the ERRO and registering with DHEC August through September. In that same time frame, they're going to likely select the group that will be, and we'll be getting notified as to who we're going to be working with. So by October, we'll have had our assignment. We'll have already begun negotiations with whoever it is that we'll be working with. The group's then going to inform the clearinghouse which opting counties and jurisdictions and private programs they have been working with and the volumes of materials they've been collecting, so that the clearinghouse can establish those percentages, make sure that the rural areas get enough coverage so that they aren't left out in the cold. This is going to be spread out evenly. They aren't just going to go to one-stop shop to get their obligation. They're going to balance it as best as they can. And then September through October, the clearinghouse is going to be looking at the generation rates, opt-in participants from the private groups, and then the information provided by the manufacturers, and do that balancing act. They'll figure out the number of approved sites. Again, each county is going to have a select number of sites that they will determine. And there will be some back and forth, I'm sure, with those that have opted in, but they will be ultimately determining the number of sites. And then by the end of the September timeframe, again, we'll be having our assignments and negotiating our position with them on the other materials, the computers, the printers, and so forth. November 1st, the clearinghouse has a deadline to submit their final plan for review by DHEC, and also the collectors to register with the clearinghouse. So Powerhouse, as an example for us, would have to register with the clearinghouse to say that we are available to be a participant, and that's a November 1st timeline as well. So again, for those that are using the Solid Waste Authority for the recycling needs on the electronics, nothing really is going to change. It's more of an organization or a structural change, and we'll be working with everyone as we move forward. Yes, sir.
So currently, the tipping fee for e-waste is variable, but can be $200 and some odd a ton because of the processing cost. How do you anticipate this impacting the tipping fee for e-waste going forward?
I would let Mike answer that only because I'm not familiar with it.
So let me tell you what I feel like the impact's gonna be on the city, this stuff. So currently, you pay for TVs, monitors, you pay for it all. So with this new program, those things will be received for free, all right? But as part of the way the bill ended up was the printers and the other stuff that's banned from the landfill, you gotta negotiate a deal with that, whoever, so let's use this example, Kevin. So they assign us Powerhouse, right? Company that's gonna recycle. So the state is really the organization, the clearinghouse organization, not the state, but the clearinghouse organization assigns us that contractor. We've requested to keep the same one, we may not. So they send us and they say, well, we're gonna take your TVs and your monitors, but we don't want none of the rest. And we have to figure out how we're gonna get rid of the rest. Can't landfill. But you can negotiate a deal. If you can negotiate a deal with the guy that's picking the TVs up, you can pay him. So we can still have to pay for the printers and anything that's not a TV or a monitor.
So the only thing that cities are gonna have a problem with is we really aren't gonna wanna sort TVs and monitors from printers and computers. I mean, right
Well,
now,
put 'em all
we're
in-
bidding you one roll-off full of all e-waste.
And we will sort those. We can't landfill them. It's against the law to landfill printers.
But when we bring you a roll-off full of e-waste, it's gonna be weighed on the way in, and we're not gonna know the weight difference between
If you wanna
the
keep them
two.
separated, that's the choice of a city. If not, if not,
Don't write that down.
if not, what we will do is do what we do now. We got X amount of tons, you brought in X amount of tons, you get your percentage of it,
Sure.
county get their percentage of it, and everybody else. Because I don't see the county being able to keep another roll-off box full of separated, so it's gonna have to come in together. The way we're gonna have to do is percentage it back out. I don't really see that changing. I don't know if Jan's got another idea, but it'd be hard to keep it separated. You'd have to have 2 roll-off boxes there. It would be a whole new ball of wax. You gotta realize now, the cost is recycling I think the majority of the cost will be recycling the TVs and the monitors. The printers and stuff won't be much so, because there's not a lot of hazardous material inside of those materials and stuff. You ain't got all that in those printers and stuff. So we think that, give an example, the county is currently paying $300,000 a year, and I'm just using round numbers, I don't know what it is, but $300,000 a year, probably gonna drop to about 100. In the bill itself, they do not allow a municipality to be a part of the clearinghouse program unless you exceed 18,000 residents. So you cannot be your own program with the state clearinghouse. You can still do your own, pay for everything, but it has to be a county or an authority throughout the state. It doesn't. So, I'm not saying the city can't, they can do whatever they want to, but they're not gonna get the free pickup for the TVs.
But they can team with other cities.
No. Now, they can team with other counties, if their county don't participate in it, they can team with other counties in another county, but I don't see me taking Marion County's TVs, I don't think it's gonna work. And of course, our cost to package them is still the same. So we got the manpower out there having to take them out. If they're broken, you know, we take the parts that's broken, it's just the plastics, and we sell the plastics off of them. We do those kind of things now if they're broken up, and there's a different cost, but they will take them. There is no, in the law, there was no defined that they had been broken or not broken. So they can go down where you're currently paying $1,000 a ton for a broken TV, that no longer exists. So that's sort of that. But I do see the bills dropping for the thing, some cities chose in the past to do their own thing. They can continue, but they won't get the subsidies.
So for example, Kevin, in Myrtle Beach, we were doing our own, we were packaging and palletizing and doing, so they look like that and sending out loads. I've already talked with the folks over there, who are gonna be handling these materials and told us, I said, look, instead of sending loads, because we aren't generating that much, our totals were dropping off. So as they generate a pallet or two of material, just bring it over here and then run it through our process. It'll already be separated, already shrunk wrapped, so the TVs and everything, when they come in, they'll all be separated on a pallet. And then same thing with the TV, the computers and whatever. And they'll separate it the way we do here, but they'll do it over there and bring it in. And then that way, their cost will go way down.
But we'll have packaging requirements based on the vendor, whoever we end up with. We don't know that we've had a good service with Powerhouse, but we don't know who we'll get. You gotta realize, our tonnages is running anywhere from 800 to 1,000 tons a year. And if a TV manufacturer can get their volume from one place, I think they'll be running, having had 4 or 5 different places they're dealing with. They're gonna be after us based on the volume. This is Mike Best's opinion, don't really mean much, but that's my opinion. But the big part for the cities is, everything still has to go to RE2 certification process. They have to go there no matter what you do with them. If you choose to deal with them on your own, they have to still meet state law. So, but the thing about it is the monitors and the TVs are now gonna be paid for by the manufacturer. Where you would not, that includes shipping, packaging products, everything. Where now we charge you back for anything our cost is, and we will continue to charge back for all of our labor costs and shipping costs. The difference is, Kevin, I see us packaging TVs in a tractor trailer and packaging printers in a tractor trailer.
And they might go to different places.
It may go to the same place, but I don't see how we can keep up with the weights no other way. This is your cost. This shipping cost is our cost.
Sure.
The only way you can do that is to basically put it in separate to trailer, which means we gotta have more property to keep them on, maintain them, and stuff like that. So. Questions? Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys, and I'll just add here that as far as legislative updates, I think that was the biggest thing. I mean, the only other things I saw as far as legislative updates had to do with waste tire facilities and just kind of more conditions on their permits, and then composting and mulching is clarifying permitting. So I think the electronics and extending what the manufacturers need to do was the biggest thing that came out of state legislative stuff. Okay, so quick updates on authority infrastructure projects. Mike already touched on a couple of these. I'm gonna let Philip give a little more detail on the landfill gas.
Yes, I'm Philip Westmoreland. As Mike spoke earlier, he said that the life of the Class 3, the MSW landfill, is through 2043. And the current permit application they have in process will take them through about 10 more years, so 2053. So even though that may sound like a long time out in the future, and many of us will be gone, except maybe for Emily, she may still be working, but.
Hey.
I'm
right here.
But as you've heard, the authority is very progressive and very forward-thinking, thinking about the future. As Mike said as well, I talked about the agreement we have to have with Santee Cooper. That started in 2000, and that agreement went through 2015. And there's been various amendments over time to that agreement. But as I said, kind of look forward, thinking about what's next, what can we do differently. Is there any changes that we need to make with that system? And there's a couple alternatives that the authority is looking at here. The first one is to continue with the current agreement with Santee Cooper, just maintain status quo, let things keep going as they are. But the other is, the second alternative is to renegotiate that contract. Is there anything different that Santee Cooper could do? Is there anything different that the authority could do to improve just revenues and the system and the operation of that? The third one is to, Santee Cooper goes away and authority takes her. They have their own system, does their own thing, and manages that themselves. And then the fourth alternative that's being looked at is landfill gas to renewable natural gas. So taking that gas and converting it to a cleaner gas and putting it into the pipeline that can be sent off and used. As Mike also mentioned earlier, in 2026, that's going to trip some additional air quality, air emissions monitoring. So now's a good time to start thinking about what can be done differently with the system and with Santee Cooper and things that they're going to need to do in order to maintain the air emission requirements that the authority has. That Santee Cooper doesn't have any air emissions that they need to worry about. It's the authority that has to worry about the Title V, the air quality, keeping the neighbors happy for the odors and things like that. Questions on that project?
That one's ongoing, right?
That was ongoing, right?
Okay. And the C&D landfill expansion, Mike already touched on that, so that is completed, and that is extending the capacity of the C&D landfill to 2030. Also already touched on the MRF upgrades, so he talked about the computer sorting and stuff that's been put into the MRF, so that's the material recovery facility that's has been updated. I think that is it for our updates on infrastructure projects. Anything else anybody wants to add in the back there? Okay. Next, we're going to give any questions so far before we get into waste characterization. I'm going to let Emily talk about the 2019 characterization study results, and she's got some comparisons to the 2016 study as well.
Hi, I'm Emily Tucker with HDR, and so this 2019 characterization study happened it was seasonal, both summer and winter in 2019, mainly to look at the difference in tourism, because obviously Myrtle Beach is a hotspot for tourism. Okay, so to give a little bit of background, we sorted through 80 truckloads of waste following ASTM methodology. And so that was 40 in summer and 40 in winter. And we looked at truckloads that came from 3 major generator sectors and 1 sub-generator sector. Those being single-family residential, multifamily residential, commercial, and tourism as a subset of commercial. And so tourist included things like campgrounds and hotels. So each truckload based on ASTM methodology was sorted into 43 material categories. And those were subsectors or subcategories of these 5 major categories, looking at, and these included recyclable paper. These included recyclable paper, recyclable containers, compostables, potential recyclables, and other materials. So based on the percentage of single-family residential, multifamily, and commercial, and how much that is typically seen in the waste, and what component, I guess they make up by weight, we were able to create an aggregate for the MSW composition for 2019. So that's where you can see we had about, of the MSW that was incoming in 2019, we found that recyclable paper made up 16%, recyclable containers 15%, compostables 24%, potential recyclables, things like rigid plastics, batteries, treated C&D, 11%, and other materials that are not typically recoverable as 35%. This waste characterization study happens every 3 years, so we were able to compare the 2019 results to the 2016 results. And so as you can see with the table or the graph on the left, if I can actually get the pointer. You can see total recyclable paper actually went down in percent present, which means it can mean two things. It can mean that the recoverability of recyclable paper has increased, so it's not as much present in the waste stream, or it could mean that the materials that are produced and generated by manufacturers are shifting from paper packaging to plastics packaging. So you can see recycled paper went down between 2016 to 2019, as well as total compostables. Recyclable containers went up slightly, potential recyclables went up slightly, and then other materials also went up slightly. And with recyclable paper and total compostables being less present, that means other materials could be more present. So that doesn't necessarily mean that more is being generated, it's just that recyclable paper and compostables are being covered more, and so the other materials are more present. The table on the right, you can see, it's a little small, but you can see the material category of the 43 different materials, and then the comparison between 2015, 2016 to the summer or winter time frame of 2019, and how each of those material categories. So for 2019, we looked at the top 10 most present materials in the aggregate waste. So the most present was food waste at 14%, then cardboard, low-grade paper, plastic bags and film, etc. So now that we know which materials are most present in the stream, we wanted to look at where they came from. So out of the 3 generator sectors, with tourism being a sub-generator, we found that the tourist commercial generator sectors contributed most to the food waste present in the stream. And commercial for cardboard, every sector seemed to contribute to low-grade paper. And so now that we know the most present materials and we know where they came from, we were able to come up with solutions that targeted, that was more tailored to who needs to be educated, or what programs could be in place that targets each specific generator sector. So for food waste, for example, you know that it came from mostly tourist hotels, campgrounds, and commercial businesses. So you can look at establishing more composting and food waste diversion programs at these places or facilities. And then cardboard, you can see the commercial sector was most contributing, so you can expand the Orange County's OCC commingled recycling program to other these commercial sectors. So yeah, the study was very telling in what materials are most present, and really hone in on who to target to help increase recoverability.
So we're going to move into just broadly challenges and opportunities in the industry. I think Mike already spoke to this as well as far as recycling markets. Everybody remembers that in 2018, the markets all tanked when China decided to stop buying our material. Things actually got better. In 21, we were pretty much back up to where we'd been back in 2017. Just in time for the economy to do what the economy's doing, and so the markets are struggling a bit again. So these line graphs basically tell that story of the volatility that has always been in recycling markets, and those certainly remain.
Allison, how about tell them about the upcoming, we'll be doing a waste analysis.
The next waste,
calculation study.
the next waste,
Scheduled for August. So we'll be doing another one this August the 8th, starting the week of August the 8th.
As Emily mentioned, that happens every 3 years. So that's part of the plan that the TAC had decided to keep doing that every 3 years. So every 3 years, you'll have those before and after comparisons, or, to kind of see how things are progressing.
Do you need the chairman and the co-chairman to attend that?
Yeah, well, we got it.
I know
I'm busy
Kevin.
that day.
We have the scratch
Characterization, plastic, men.
Put on new hip waders.
I love the idea of getting the TAC involved in the characterization studies. Was that what you were suggesting? Maybe not really, but so recycling markets are still volatile. The waste characterizations, that's looking at what's in the waste stream that shouldn't be, right? So it's kind of pointing out the things that could be recovered. Markets for recycling have always been volatile. It's been a crazy last few years. But it's always still worthwhile. And as Mike was mentioning earlier, there was almost double the revenue in 1 year. That's not always true, but sometimes it's true. So it's doing the right thing for the right reasons, and sometimes the revenue is really good. I don't think I have to explain any of this to you guys. These are some of the challenges that are facing everybody, but the solid waste industry in particular, when it comes to equipment, the supply chain issues, just the price of steel, which I've got another slide on where that is, staffing with the high demand for CDL drivers, and for the local governments that do their own collection, you're competing with Amazon and everybody, the trucking industry. For the private industry, it's probably been a challenge just to find the CDL drivers. Then inflation is affecting all of us, but the fuel component and just even buying safety equipment and everything else. So it's been, what I've been saying is as the recycling markets recovered, it was just in time for all these other things to hit the industry. Now the recycling markets are kind of tacking back down a little bit too. So it's definitely been a challenging time in the industry as a whole. This just gives you an idea of what's happened with the price of steel. So back in 2020, it was 20 cents, shot up to 88 cents. Started coming back down. Russia invaded Ukraine, it went back up, now the prices are coming back down. So the price of steel affecting the equipment, the trucks and everything else that we need. I think the delays, the supply chain issues, it really comes down to the chassis for the trucks. That you get the steel, it's just more expensive, but it's still taking a really long time to actually get the equipment in place right now because of the supply chain issues as well. Anybody wants to add on any anecdotal, real-life examples of what you've been dealing with, feel free to jump in.
I can add a little bit to that. Talking to some of the equipment vendors, they're talking about a 3% price increase per month is what they're looking at right now. And I know at the city of Myrtle Beach, before I had left, I had ordered 3 trucks last July. They won't be there until June of 23, May or June of 23.
So very long delays. And then there's rumor that there may be new emission standards coming in.
The next set is coming.
In the next set, which is going to delay things even longer and raise the price even more. So there's certainly challenges facing the industry. Fuel costs, this just gives you a comparison of gas compared to diesel compared to CNG. CNG is that blue line down at the bottom that's always usually lower, but even that is starting to tick up. So all of the fuel pricing has also been exacerbating some of the challenges in the industry. A little bit of, maybe good news, it kind of depends on how you look at it, but EPA has been working on a circular economy effort. They're doing this in 6 parts. Part 1 is the National Recycling Strategy. That has been completed. They're actually in the implementation phase at the federal level. And in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, they actually did get some money in there for recycling infrastructure and for recycling education and outreach. Now, it's not huge dollar amounts in the grand scheme of things, but it's something. So I think it's significant to note that at least recycling infrastructure is being considered critical infrastructure, and it's being included in the infrastructure bill. So EPA at this point, they've got a request for information out. Actually, it was due July 25th. To get them some information. They were asking questions of the industry. What do you guys want to do with these grants? Kind of, do you think they should be stackable year over year? Who should be able to qualify for them? So they wanted to hear from the industry. Actually worked with SWANA, which is the Solid Waste Association of North America, in putting together a response from the industry to give them some feedback on some suggestions. If anyone's ever been through federal grant money, it can be very cumbersome. You start to question if it's worth the paperwork to get to the money. So one of the things that came up, to give you guys an idea, what I'm hearing is it would be about 55 million a year through at least 2026 for infrastructure. But that's nationwide. So figuring out who gets that money is, what EPA is gonna have to do through this grant process. So we're trying to weigh in and influence EPA. We did also make the suggestion of make sure that some of the funds can go toward whatever reporting requirements you put in it, because with any of these grant funds, you've got to be tracking and reporting back. So to try to help make it worth everybody's while to actually put in for these grants, we've made some suggestions, we'll see. EPA originally thought they'd be rolling this out by October 1st. I don't see that happening. I think it'll be early next year, but there will be these grant programs coming out early next year. Again, one series is for the infrastructure, another series is education and outreach. I think they've only got about 15 million a year on the education and outreach side that will be coming out. And again, probably only through 2026. I think in the industry, the mindset is if we can get some kind of programs going that could be recurring, then hopefully it continues to be part of the infrastructure bill and the federal government continues to provide, or at least help provide some funding. There are parts of the country that have very mature systems, but they need modernization. Other parts of the country where they don't even have access to recycling. So how exactly EPA is going to go about putting this money out there remains to be seen, but it is, like I said, I think the bright side is at least it was part of the infrastructure bill, right? Because that's a relatively new thing for us in the industry. Any questions or comments? Federal on recycling? Okay, so we have gone through, I've nagged everybody for their data requests. We went through the overview of what all the authority does. We talked about the characterization study and some infrastructure stuff that's going on. I did that quick blurb of kind of big picture what's going on in the industry. Now I want to dig into this plan. So the reason that we're all here. I hope you guys enjoyed all the photos and graphs that were on the previous slides, because the next few slides are a lot of words. I really do just want to kind of dig in and start thinking through, like I mentioned in the beginning, one of our goals for this meeting is if there are topics you guys want to know more about, or if you want us to bring back any kind of research on those topics, if you want to think about things to put into this update for the plan, we want to get at that. But I want to start with the general goals. Again, this is the South Carolina statewide goals, recycling 40% or more of MSW. What you can see on the screen is where we've been from 16, 19, and 2021. This is all according to, the state puts out the solid waste management annual report. So this is what's in the annual state report. So you can see that the recycling rate is hovering around 30%. And then with that goal of 40% or more. One thing that was interesting in this year's state report they put out is that they're no longer put a year to these goals. So they used to be saying recycle 40% or more by 2020, and then reducing the average MSW disposal to 3.25 pounds per person per day by 2020. They've just taken out the by 2020. So these goals are still there. They just don't have a date certain as part of the goals that's in the 21 state report. So I want to see if you guys have any general thoughts or discussions first before we get into the weeds of what's in the plan this time around, as far as what's happened since the last update, new challenges, new opportunities. For those of you who were a part of the last update, we had established something to kind of go beyond just what the state goals say in the plan itself, and we'll talk in more detail about that in a minute. But I want to just pause here and see if anyone has any kind of big picture thoughts that you want to share over the last 3 or 4 years. What new challenges or opportunities have you seen, if any?
One of the things that the authority is looking at, or even discussed at its last board meeting this week, is the issue of solar panels. Solar panels are going to start making their way into the waste stream here.
And they're very toxic.
We don't have any direction from DHEC as yet. I know they're probably working on that. They've had a group of stakeholders looking at the larger scale solar farms, 13 acres or more. But we're going to start to see, and have already seen, the contractor who's doing a roof job coming in with solar panels and wanting to know what to do with them. And Mr. Besson here in his infinite wisdom has told everyone, call DHEC. That's our pat answer. We can't take, the board has said that we don't need to be in a position of accepting materials that we don't know how they're gonna be regulated in the future. And so we've just decided that we aren't gonna be taking them at this facility, and that it's best to call DHEC to get, where they're gonna go. That was a great response.
That is a great response. Does DHEC have an answer right now? Have they, because I mean, there is a tsunami of solar panels that are gonna be hitting the solid waste industry very soon. And I know there are certain working groups that are trying to figure out what to do because people don't realize how toxic they are, and you shouldn't just put them in a landfill, but.
It'll be the next e-waste issue.
And maybe get the manufacturers to fund the program to properly manage that.
And most of the research, I did a little bit of an update for the board for this week's meeting, and most of the research that I found said that if you are looking at solar panels, it's because you're looking at them from the sense of a solar farm. So you're talking about financial maturity, decommissioning at the end of life, that sort of thing. But the residential and the idea that all these materials are gonna come into the waste stream, really nobody is looking at that. But everyone agreed that it's gonna take government intervention of some kind, producer responsibility, regulatory, somehow bans from the land, whatever it is, it's gonna have to come from the government, so.
That's a really good point. From the TAC, do you feel like this is something we need to be addressing in the plan? Or at least, I mean, I feel like we gotta mention it, but the statement could be DHEC needs to tell us what to do so we can acknowledge it. Thoughts from the TAC, anything for the local governments? I mean, this doesn't really fall on you usually if it's a roofer taking it off of somebody's rooftop, but.
Yeah, we would tell them the same thing.
Tell them.
We're not gonna take it at our transfer
Call
station.
Ed, and then he'll say,
Call
DHEC.
Ed.
Yeah, the state needs to
Let Ed
regulate.
call Mike, and Mike will tell him to call
Mike.
Ed.
What do you guys think? Is this something you would want to know more? You want us to bring some more information at the next meeting on this? Or do
Maybe
you feel
include a
like
section on, I don't know, emerging contaminants, emerging concerns, something like that.
So even having a new section sort of
Yeah.
dedicated to this kind of thing, I like that idea.
I think we could make a statement, that the Solid Waste Authority is currently waiting for state regulations in order to determine the management of those types of products.
Yeah.
Just so it's in the plan.
I think that's a really good idea, and I was gonna mention, I know one of the things that was in the state report this year talked about commercial sector reporting, and that is something in the last plan that we made sure we really highlighted, so I think the state actually reads these plans, right? So we're influencing them, so we need to put something in there that the authority is looking for direction from the state.
There's very few counties that update the plans in this state. The plans are back from the 90s. They're not a requirement to update them.
Any other kind of new challenges or new opportunities or brand new topics? I know some of you are new to the TAC and maybe haven't read the plan yet, so you may have more to say once we go through some of these action items, but.
It's just more on the collection system side, but we're seeing significant issues with the proliferation of online rental management companies that have no local presence with managing trash in residential neighborhoods.
Because they've
For
got people
short-term
coming in and
rentals.
out, they don't
Yeah.
know which day is the
Constant
regular collection
changeover,
day.
different days. It's a collection system issue, and it's spilling into neighborhoods that would not traditionally be short-term rental management neighborhoods.
Topic, we probably should try to represent somehow on what that means for the jurisdictions. So what happens now? If you have one of these rental, it's like a weekly or daily or few day rentals and people are just setting their
Yeah,
trash out.
typically it starts with a complaint from the neighbors, either
Right.
from trash, noise, or parking, one or the other, or all of the above typically. And then, of course, you gotta find out whether they're licensed or not. Most of them have no local presence, most of the owners are out of state. And it ends up being a collection issue, and you end up having to make special collections. And of course,
And then trying to charge them for it.
trying
in
to
the
charge
next
for
year.
special collections, and these out-of-state people get bills a month later. It's like, what the heck are you doing?
Right.
So, but it's a volume issue, and then it becomes a windblown trash and a litter issue and an animal spreading issue, all of the above.
Anything else new that's been challenging to anyone since our last update, or a new opportunity? Anybody have any
I'm gonna ask this for Ed. Ed, you talk a lot about e-waste and TVs and computers and different things like that. Most of you have seen electric vehicles are becoming pretty prominent, and with batteries and things like that. You know, we all have batteries in our cell phones, so lithium batteries is going to be growing significantly as well. I don't think the e-waste bill talks anything about batteries or lithium batteries or anything like that, but.
It does not, but it is posing, and Mike can speak to it in terms of the landfill too, and even in the collection side, the lithium batteries are becoming a hazard, causing fires in vehicles and things of that nature. And there's getting to be more and more of that in the waste stream, so that's definitely something that should be.
One I can mention too, that another one of EPA's grants is focused on battery recycling or how to keep them out, but that's again at the federal level, and how much money actually gets down to everybody, who knows? So I think that's another good.
Allison, we may want to get some recommendations from the committee because of the lithium batteries issue. What we're having is construction companies are going to using lithium batteries. Don't work no more, they throw it in the construction box, ends up in the landfill and causes a fire. We've seen the number of fires on C&D go up dramatically in the last few years. See, if they're working during the daytime and one will strike off and create a fire in a small area, well, those we can handle pretty good because we're right here, but when they start happening at 7 and 8 o'clock at night, they become issues. So I don't know if the committee needs to discuss that and see if they can come up with some recommendations.
That's one of the reasons why I haven't ever entertained a battery recycling program with the town. You know, I've entertained it over the years, but from what I've learned over the years from the conferences and whatnot is that they'll sell batteries to go dead, and they can go in the trash. But these lithium batteries never really go dead. There's always some energy in them, which causes the fires. If they make contact with the wrong items, I'm just not going to take that liability.
Well, so in our next TAC meeting though, is it worth trying to brainstorm some ideas of what should be in the plan and what to even do about it? You guys agree that would be a good topic, one of our topics for next time?
At least some kind of recommended, especially for the folks in the room who have collections operations, some kind of a recommendation that we can pass on to the consumer when you're disposing of these items. You know, wrap them in tape or do something, or recycle them or drop them off, or at least some kind of direction that can be provided to the folks that we're servicing.
Maybe pull any state or federal rate, because I know there are some stores that recycle those batteries.
The
Best
take-back
Buy,
program.
Lowe's, Home Depot. Is that in state or federal regulation, or is that something these retailers are doing voluntarily? I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
Yeah, I think Batteries Plus was taking everything back, but I'm not sure if they're still doing it.
Not last time I was in those stores. I did not see a recycle box in those places.
And they may not want you to advertise it even if they do.
That's
because they may
exactly
know
right,
A lot more
yeah,
than they
yeah.
thought. So yeah, I think that's a really good topic to dig into. So we'll try to see what the state has to say or what the federal government has to say about those take-back programs.
A general question about how you go about coordinating your various programs. You'd mentioned your gas program and your organics diversion program. How do you coordinate those studies? Because the more organics you pull out of the landfill, the less gas you're going to generate generally. Where are you going to balance that somewhere down the road? And at some point there's a decision point. Do you put the organics in the landfill for the gas program, or you just discontinue the gas program and pull the organics out, and those types of things?
So you guys would like to see like how long before there's really, if you're pulling out the organics, it takes a long, long time before there wouldn't be gas to pull out of the landfill, right? Like,
Right, for like the current operations.
For
right.
current
Yeah, I mean, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul at some point in time,
Right.
between these various programs, from a long-term standpoint.
Okay, so we can bring back some information on, kind of let you see how long it takes before pulling the organics out is starting to have an adverse impact on the gas. Okay, good ideas for topics for next time. Any other general thoughts before we dig into some weeds here? Right. So, what we've got in the plan, and again, I know Some of you were a part of this update last time around, and maybe the time before that, some of you were not. So let me give you a little bit of background. What's in the actual plan itself. We go through the state plans and goals, and then that's 6.1, and then in 6.2 of the plan itself, we have the strategies to meet those goals and policies of the act, so what the state has said. What we added actually back in the 2014-15 update was a new section about additional potential strategies and action items that were important to the TAC and specific to the jurisdictions here. And then we get into ongoing actions taken to meet the goals, and then we'll talk about the barriers to achieve the goals. What I want to do today is just quickly touch on the state goals and policies and the strategies to meet that. I think some of that will be only changed if the state has changed anything, and I don't think there have been many changes. And then 6.3 is where I was wanting to kind of dig in with everybody as much as we can to show you the action items we had in the plan last time around, what you want to add or modify or delete from the previous update. So again, apologies for how wordy the next several slides are going to be, and we'll just get as far as we can in that. So please do get some coffee, get some donuts, get up and walk around a little if you need to. But we just want to keep this kind of a group discussion on where we want to go. And again, it helps the three of us know what to bring back to you guys next time for our next meeting, so we can start making some final decisions on the edits we want to make on the plan. So again, with the state goals, reducing the MSW being generated at 3.5 pounds per day, and then recycling 40% or more of the MSW. Once again, there's no longer a year certain according to the state. This is just still their goal. These policies were from the state that are up on the screen here, prioritizing using options prior to the point where you have to put it in a landfill. They obviously want to protect public health, safety, and the environment. They want to encourage research by private entities and look for better ways to reduce waste or divert it. They encourage a regional approach, which you guys already have here, and then they want every region to work toward those recycling and waste reduction goals. So that's kind of a recap of what the state policies are. One thing that was a little bit different in the state report in 21 is they actually did put recommendations in, and again, this is more from the state's perspective, but the state's recommendations, I think I mentioned this earlier, one of them was to increase the business side reporting. And I do wonder if that came from the work we did in this plan back in 2019 that sort of influenced the state to recognize there may be a lot more recycling going on out there than what's actually being captured, because the reporting has been, I'm going to call it hit or miss. I don't know if anyone would describe it any other way, but I would call it hit or miss as far as just even reporting what actually is going on for recycling. Some of the other things that they mentioned in the state report was improving the education and outreach on contamination. That was kind of more general. And then they are planning on, at least their recommendation they put in the report is to update the state plan in more of a, maybe take it a different direction, because that state plan each year looks very similar. It's just kind of updated with new numbers, but it sounds like the state is maybe ready to kind of reconfigure what they're doing at the state level with their plan. So there are some recommendations in the state plan, but it doesn't really change what their goals are or what their primary policies are. What I will offer to the group is that we can just update the text in 6.1 to reflect the changes in those state goals and policies as needed, and maybe just mention these recommendations that they've added. I'm not sure that there's much more you guys would want to do with what the state's saying. I think this is probably just up to us to make sure it's reflecting what the state says. Anyone have comments or disagree and you want to dig into word by word? Not seeing anyone wanting to dig in word by word, so we will get into.
Allison,
Yes.
let me say something. I know the last go round, we talked a great deal about how the state requires you to report. Go back to the last slide. No, it's the top one, number 1 up here on state goals. 3.5 pounds per day. Kevin will never get that at North Myrtle Beach because the state will not recognize the tourist population at North Myrtle Beach today. I mean, the way you have to report that is based on permanent population. Till they start recognizing, and it's not only the coast, it's Greenville, it's the Columbia's, York County, but and I don't know if you'll ever get DA to change that, but it took us 2 years to change the e-waste, and we don't mind taking that battle or to somebody in the Capitol or some way to do that. It's mandatory that the counties report recycling. Industries don't have to report, and it throws us out of balance where you can get one big company not to report 1 year, and it looks like you just dropped the ball and they just don't care anymore. But it's the reporting, as a requirement of the reporting, how you deal with the tourist population. But we have done that in the management plan. We got coastal to figure out what the tourist population does, and it pretty much, the tourist population pretty much doubles the county permanent population. And that just throws everything out of damn kilter if somebody picks up the book from Florida and takes a look at it, so well, they're not doing too damn good. Just a thought from our perspective.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think because we did have some stuff in the 2019 plan about the commercial reporting and needing to improve reporting from the businesses, and the state picked up on it, we might as well mention an actual action item and try to work with the state on this tourism issue.
Yeah.
See if they pick up on that for the next time around, so I love that suggestion. Okay, I think with 6.2, this is what we have in the plan right now for the strategies to meet the goals and policies. So this is, well, I don't want to read all of this out to you guys, but I think as we get through the specific strategies, maybe we revisit this as far as generally the strategies to meet the goals and policies. And again, this is more aimed at trying to meet the state goals. So to Danny's point, the reporting has been out of whack. So how close you might be to meeting the state goals isn't clear because the state's reporting requirements aren't very clear, or at least not comprehensive. So we can revisit this as far as those strategies to meet the goal, but it's basically keeping the staff that fully supporting the missions and goals, providing those educational programs to the public. Obviously, the authority does quite a bit of that. Providing the comprehensive solid waste management programs and the state-of-the-art technologies. We heard a lot about that earlier with everything the authority's already doing. And I know they keep an eye on what's coming next. And then providing the well-maintained facilities, I think we all agree they do that. And having an active liaison and communication with industry, federal, state, and local officials. I know when we get into some of the specific action items, we talked about maybe having subcommittees that are trying to work with DHEC. So maybe we try to influence them more directly than just the words we put in the plan. We may try to have a broader group having that dialogue, and then continuing to employ, train, and retain the highly competent workforce and that regional approach. So these are things that the authority is already doing to kind of work toward meeting the goals and strategies. I think we can come back to this to see if there's anything we want to tweak or add to this, unless anybody has comments today on these items for the authority.
I know, Allison, I think I remember right, last year you sent out some of these sections, just email them out.
Oh, yeah, so you
And
guys will
basically
definitely get
said,
opportunity.
if you've got any comments on chapter 6 or whatever it is, please mark it up, redline it, and send it back.
Yep, that is coming. I'm trying to ease you guys into that. So today we talk about it, so you get a glimpse. And then, yes, I think that's exactly what we'll end up doing. So you will absolutely get another chance to kind of look at what we're doing. Again, the main goal today is to see what else we need to be researching and bringing back to you guys so that you can be thinking about those recommendations and those potential changes. So I think 6.3 is where it really does get into, here are the specific action items and strategies that the TAC had recommended in 2019 that goes above and beyond what the state requires. And I think I already mentioned this, that it was back in the 2015 plan update. That's when we added this new section of additional potential strategies and action items to consider. So this was kind of going beyond what the state says, and it was what the TAC felt was important to include in the plan. It's organized by what I refer to as the solid waste loop. So that's the graphic that you see here. Oh, this might be one of my last graphics because the rest of this really is words. So enjoy the solid waste loop. So we just kind of broke it down by generation. You know, all of us are generators. Then you got to get it collected. Then you can take it to processing or to disposal, then get it back to end markets. So kind of that circular economy thought process of keep as much as you can being processed and turned into end products, knowing that inevitably there's going to be the need for disposal. But we organize these into these different sections according to the loop. So that's how that section is actually organized in the plan document itself. It's how the rest of these slides are going to look in just a minute here. So again, as we go through these, let's talk about what's happened since the last update, what hasn't happened since the last update, because there were some action items in there. And then again, we're just starting to think about what we want to keep, what we want to modify, what we want to drop, what we might want to add to these as we walk through them. And we've already identified a few areas, I think, for more topics that for research. So talking about the solar panels, the lithium batteries, I think there's, and the tourism population and what's happening with the Airbnbs and the VRBOs and how that's affecting collections. So we've already got some good ideas. I feel like that'll make for a good meeting next time. And now, I warned you, very wordy slides. So I'm gonna try to just highlight for you guys where we went with this and just get your initial reactions. So this is on the consumption or generation and those potential strategies. We did have something in the plan in 2019. I'm jumping down to the action item to work with DHEC to improve or streamline and enforce reporting. And so this is something we've already mentioned a couple times here today, but it's important. You can't manage what you don't measure. So getting the measurement right is why we had this action item. Beyond what, I mean, I think the authority is coordinating with DHEC regularly. Was there anything else that's gone on since the last update that was specifically trying to work with DHEC to improve or streamline that anyone's aware of? And should this stay on the list as an action item in the plan? I'd like to hear from the TAC before I put the authority on the spot to see what they think. We need your recommendations.
You mentioned the state picked up on it in the plan last time. Did they take any action on it?
They made it a recommendation in the 2021 state report. So the recommendation is to improve on the business form for recycling. What the state will do with it next, I mean, again, I think you heard the legislative update. We know that electronics was probably the big thing that impacts this industry the most. There wasn't anything legislatively that I saw that changed anything about the actual reporting requirements. So the state has recommended in their own statewide report that they need to start doing more on that, but I've not heard of any legislative action. So, does anyone on the TAC ever have any direct contact with DHEC? Is there any reason why any of you would ever have been talking with them for other reasons? From the private sector, is there ever a time when you're...
Not yet.
Have you been required to report anything to DHEC?
No.
See, they haven't done anything about the reporting requirements.
No.
What is your thought on having some kind of mandatory reporting? I mean, would you...
I would do it. I mean, I don't think, I mean, if it wasn't anything extremely lengthy.
Yeah, they kept it easy and
Yeah.
not too burdensome,
Yeah,
you'd
yeah.
support it. Well, having private sector represented on the TAC could give us an opportunity to say, hey, we know what private sector is saying, what local government's saying. We can't manage what we can't measure. We need some help measuring.
Probably a question for the county, but can the county pass an ordinance to require reporting for generators within the county jurisdiction?
I know Esther stepped out of the room. She maybe knew that question was coming, right?
Legally, I don't know. I mean, we can certainly pass something, whether or not they have to comply or not, I don't know.
Yeah, that's politics as much as anything else. Yes, maybe you can, but
A lot of people don't want to report.
do the politicians want to?
Some haulers probably cross that line.
Probably so, yeah.
Enforcing would be very tough.
Yeah, they don't want to.
Yeah, like, we have to report.
Right, so a private business that's picking up recyclables wouldn't want others to know how many tons, they wouldn't, they'd say it was proprietary,
They don't know how many.
how many customers they have.
They can infer their production or their sales based on it.
Based on the amount of waste or something like that, sure, I guess you could.
Could you tie it to a business license?
That'll probably be.
Well, I mean, even as something as simple as cardboard recycling at the back of the grocery store, I mean, that's, I'm assuming is not picked up either, so.
Yeah, it's like, you know, we have to report to DHEC every year with the annual reporting, with Retract Connect and all that, and full cost disclosure reporting and all that. And we can report what we recycle, and we can report how many tons we generate. But like Kevin
As a
said,
city,
if Food Line is sending their films and cardboard back to their warehouses instead of giving it to us to recycle, I don't know where that's going, or if it's, you know, it's generated in town, but where is it going, who knows?
So it's theoretically possible to have an ordinance in the county. How much you would force it or what, you know, who would abide by it is,
And whether there's the will to do it if the state doesn't have a regulation.
Yeah.
That really should
We
be
are
from
the
state.
independent republic, aren't we?
and again, from the private sector, any comments or thoughts on that? I mean, is it?
I think it would be possible to report that. I mean, in my world, I don't think that would be an issue. I mean, we're, in the private sector world, I think we're pretty small compared to others, so that wouldn't be a huge burden, but I could imagine that being
Some people would
a
push
lengthy
back.
process. And yeah.
Well, and I think
Or
there's,
just to try to figure out, you know, a pretty easy, straightforward way to kind of report it.
right, should it be the hauler that's picking it up, or should it be the grocery store that has all the film that got picked up? So who,
Right.
where do you even put that burden of reporting and
And I
tracking?
think the reality is you need the state, it needs to come from the state. Counties and cities won't do it, I don't think, unless the state does.
Okay. There kind of consensus there that even if the county did it, I mean, without the state saying this is required, it's not gonna. Okay. Leaving it out, reporting has to come from the state. But people are on board if the state does something about it to make sure that the reporting happens. So as far as an action item, you know, we did mention that there could be a county ordinance or an incentive program to promote businesses that report. We had talked last time around about some of the ideas, but it came down to work with DHEC. And so it sounds like we maybe stick with work with DHEC and see what can come about from the state to better tracking and reporting.
I just want to make a suggestion, as far as working with the state, doesn't necessarily mean that the TAC has to do it or the authority. Most of you have heard of SWANA, the Solid Waste Association of North Americans. Most of us in the room here are probably a part of that. Allison, Emily, myself, and Stephanie, she's actually the vice president of the chapter. So other work groups that SWANA has been on working with DHEC for e-waste and solar panels and things like that. So utilizing SWANA, the chapter, to help facilitate that or work with DHEC is an option there as well. Edmar is a part of it, on the board as well.
Okay, so this one is, maybe the action item is tweaked a little bit from what we did in 2019 to see if any of the organizations can help with working with DHEC to get to the reporting. Thoughts there. The next one up is performing the waste characterization study every 3 years. So Emily gave the background of the last two. Mike mentioned that the next one is coming up. I believe the every 3 years is something that the TAC had recommended in the past, and that's why it happens every 3 years. So this TAC can make a different recommendation if you don't think that needs to happen every 3 years. I think that it was something that we'd originally aimed to do before each plan update, so that you could better understand what's in the waste stream, so you can know what to target. Any thoughts today as far as keep that every 3 year cycle? Thoughts about seeing the before and afters, or the 2016 to 2019 that Emily showed? Is that helpful to have as part of the plan update, and you want to keep that going?
Plan update to do how often?
Well, that's another thing that the TAC had decided it would happen every 3 years. And that this TAC could recommend some frequency other than that. So we could tie the characterization study to happen however often you decide the plan updates happen.
Is there what's the DHEC requirement?
DHEC requires that the county, I mean, you gotta report to the state every year. DHEC doesn't really say you have to do a plan update. I mean, Mike mentioned some haven't updated theirs since the 90s. So everybody was required to do a plan, every county. How often you update it is not a state requirement.
There is no state requirement. It was a requirement to have a plan in the 90s.
Yeah.
When the new regulations, Solid Waste Management Act came out. After that, there is no requirement for updates. The only time you get problems with not having updates is when you try to do something within your county that's not in that plan. Then if it's not in the plan, DA's not going to approve it. And then when you see counties run to try to increase them. Where the Solid Waste Authority in Horry County has said, we're gonna maintain a living document and just keep it moving, and rather than trying to regenerate it over and over and over. One of the issues that the Solid Waste Authority is having with our current plan of an update every 3 years, and the example was the last plan. It took us over 1.5 years just to get it approved. So by the time you get it approved, and you never know when that's gonna happen, this plan may go through in 6 months. But if it gets in that political wheel, and starts moving around in circles, it could take several years.
Was that driven by COVID? Was that a COVID
No,
consequence?
That was prior to COVID.
Politics.
Prior to
Purely
COVID.
I think 3's a little short. I mean, maybe
Well,
5's
that's
a
what
good
we-
number.
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to say, by the time we get it through, because, we gotta take it to each city,
Yeah.
and then when you get the county council, with us, politics could jump in both feet all at one time.
Yeah.
It could not, you never know. It's going what's hot on the burner at the time. But once we get it approved, we can't start implementing the plan until we get it approved. And then by the time we get it approved and get it up to the state and get their answer back, time to redo it again.
So if you
3 years
change,
seems to be a little quick. to
yeah,
us.
so if you change that from 3 years to 5 years, are you in a position to identify any projects or facilities that you need within the next 5 years?
Oh, yeah,
That you
we do it
wouldn't-
20 years out.
Okay, so there wouldn't be anything that would come up between now and then that wouldn't be in the plan?
Right. So what the state plan says is that all counties and stuff must plan 20 years out.
Okay.
Gotta have a 20-year planning period. So then you're looking at 20 years. Well, if they're not building a facility or got a waste issue within a county, they just don't change anything. And then they run in and change it and it's planned for 20 years. I really think one of the recommendations to the state should be there are some type of requirements to at least update it every
10 years at
10,
least, or
15 years.
whatever, yeah.
Should be some kind of requirement in order for the state, because they take their plan from the county's plans and make the state plan. So, but they don't require it. When they started building C&D landfills in Marion County, the plan did not prohibit how close they could be. So they were popping up all over the place. So then they went to run and they hired their law firm to come in and get them a plan together. Get it done, to get it in real quick and try to slow somebody down. That's sort of after the fact. You can't, once something's in place, you can't go back and change it. It's kind of tougher to change in the middle of it. But like I said, the Solid Waste Authority hasn't done that. I would not be scared to say, the only county in this state that updates it regularly. But that's just a concern we have internally, that by the time we get to the point that we really start implementing y'all's goals, things you want us to look at, things you want us to do, it's time to update it again. We really don't have time to do it.
How often, or does DHEC audit you on your plan?
They don't.
Okay. Or do they have that, I mean, do they have that ability? Because that would be a problem too, if they come in and audit you on your plan. And
They don't audit.
You have, okay.
At all.
But if you want to move on something, you got to show them it's in the
It's in the
plan.
plan.
So it really is the other way around, that the authority needs to have it in the plan to get
In order for us
DHEC
to
to
do
approve.
It would make sense for 5 years.
Yeah, I don't think we have to make a decision today, but I think 5 years is a reasonable number.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with 5 years. I just think that the process that we're going through is as important as the plan. It was all sitting down and talking about things that we're going through at the time, because every year is different. So I would like to, if we're gonna do a plan every 5 years, I think we should have sort of like a midpoint.
What if a midpoint plan review?
Yeah, plan review and an update maybe. some sort of allowance for that.
Yeah, that's what I
Without going
was,
through the whole thing.
that's what I was gonna suggest as well, as we talked about just emerging, issues like solar panels and lithium batteries and all those things, like 3 years ago, didn't think about that, but now there's, who knows what's gonna come.
Yeah, 5 years is kind of long to go in between something like that.
You could do maybe just TAC meetings at the halfway, or periodically within those 5 years, and just have notes from that would be incorporated every 5 years into the actual plan, but you could have like a memo that recaps what came up.
You could do an amendment. I don't
And
know.
like, just, yeah, tack it on as.
Let me say this, so we got challenged on the plan over a transfer station. Solid Waste Authority way back when denied the transfer station. We got sued. The judge ruled, Administrative Law Court ruled, that the Solid Waste Authority did not do the current plan the same way they did the first plan. Therefore, the current plan was not valid. Only the plan that was done first. And that's why we make sure particularly that we do it exactly like we did it on the first plan. Everything, every way we do it, it's constant that way. So if you got in the midterm and the TAC just wanted to get together for 1 or 2 meetings, you could do that without changing the whole plan. You could add, because the way you update the plan, if you change anything in the plan, it's got to go back through the political process. The Coweta County Council is the only group that can approve that plan. So if you change it in the middle, you can give recommendations and stuff to solid waste, but what you need to start looking at this. But if you start changing the words in that document, it has to go back through that process. I ain't trying to muddy the water, but we got a problem where we don't really have time to act on what y'all want us to act on. But on the other hand, we have to do it the same way. Because we done had a judge tell us, you didn't do it the same way. You didn't have the meetings, you didn't get the cities to sign off on it. There was no requirement for the cities to sign off on it. The first one, the city signed off on.
That's why you do it every time.
That's why I just giving y'all a little background. Sort of double-edged sword.
But I think we don't have to make a final decision today, but the idea of making it an every 5-year update, maybe have the TAC get together at least once in between, just to talk about what maybe we need to look at for the next plan update. So you guys don't have to look at this many words on one slide at one time, right? So mull that over and then we'll make a final decision, or you all will make a final decision on that.
If
as well.
solid waste would have a lunch for us once a year.
You gotta talk Danny into doing that.
We'll do that. If you push it to 5 years, we'll have.
Okay.
As long as it's not coming out of the organics diversion
Not
program.
the same week that you do your characterization.
Characterization, yeah.
We're trying to reduce the food waste, so we'll have one.
Well, I think in the interest of time, I'm going to give you guys just a glimpse of this. There were a lot in this generation, so this got into, there was some discussion on food scraps and promoting backyard composting, encouraging DHEC to take more action on EPR initiatives. There's were a few more here. I just want to give you guys a glimpse of what's in the other sections, which are actually a little shorter than this one. And then we can, again, we've got 2 more meetings, so we will come back to all of this. On collection and transfer, there was an action item to form a subcommittee to research and share information on pay-as-you-throw programs. Establishing a goal of transitioning each municipality to carts in the next 3 years was something else that we put in 2019. So we'll want to hear from everybody for how we're doing on those things. Again, because we've only got 10 more minutes, I'm going to go a little quicker through these. With the processing and conversion, this is basically up to the authority to keep monitoring and evaluating. I'm not sure that we'd want to change that we'd want them to keep an eye on, the latest technologies. We also had one in here to review and research all the properties and existing permits to gain maximum life of the existing landfill location. So again, I think these mostly fall on the authority, and I'm not sure if maybe we do some minor edits, but I think they'd always keep an eye on new technologies and making the most of their facilities. Marketing and in-use is just evaluating those end markets in the region to determine what markets are readily available in the area and what kinds of markets make sense to try to attract to the area. And a special attention on the tourist-generated materials should be given. So that was another thing we mentioned on the marketing and in-use back in 2019. Additional material streams was another section we added last time around, and this focused on that number 14 there is on organics. Looking at recycling more C&D as part of number 15. Considering tipping fees or other funding sources that could cover the cost of recycling and diversion programs in order to avoid the negative impact of funding programs that successfully reduce waste tonnages while also reducing the tipping fees. So it's kind of making sure the economics are working for the programs. And then encouraging municipalities to accept the 2018 strategies as part of their own. So for those of you who may have your own plan or your own goals and strategies within a city or a town, make sure that these are kind of incorporated into what you guys are doing. Then we had another section just on subcommittees to consider. So this sort of summarized what was on a few of the other slides, but we stated it in the plan. These are the subcommittees to consider. So we didn't obligate anyone, we said consider it. But we did want to have these, the DHEC subcommittee we mentioned earlier, an organic subcommittee, a pay-as-you-throw subcommittee, a municipality subcommittee, and then a ban subcommittee. So these were the subcommittees that we thought were worth considering in the 2019 plan. Again, we can take another look at these, see if we want to tweak it or add to it or get rid of some. Let me move on to the next steps. I want to leave enough time that we can talk about setting our next TAC meeting. That's why I'm trying to kind of rushing through this here with the time that we have left. We've already got some great ideas from you guys for the topics that we can bring back in the next meeting, so we can talk about some of those new ideas. We can also dig in a little deeper in the wording of those existing strategies. We'll be working on updating the data, so the historical and projection data we'll be able to show you guys next time around, and bring that further research, and then get through that approval process. So I want to give you guys an idea, and Mike had already touched on this, but this is kind of where we are on schedule for this project at this point. So our TAC meeting got delayed a little bit, so here we are with our first TAC meeting in July. We need to have one in August and another one in September so that we can try to get the final plan, the final draft done in October. And then that early November be presenting kind of that final draft to you guys for your final comment in early November. Do whatever revisions we need to do, and then present the plan at a policy council meeting once you guys have blessed that plan document.
The policy council meeting is your mayor's administrator.
Is that what used to be the League of Cities?
No. This is just where we come bring the mayors and the cities in and explain the plan.
And is that in lieu of each of us taking the plan and y'all coming to a local city council meeting?
At that point in time, we hand out a sample resolution, the resolution you did last time, and ask y'all to pass that resolution.
And y'all used to come to the cities to present that?
Some cities want us to come, and some do not.
Okay. I just didn't want to be redundant with having to have all the cities come here and then turn around and have y'all go off the cities as well.
All the councils have to approve it, all the city councils have to approve it.
Yes.
You can give the mayors the resolution directly?
The policy council is the mayors and the administrators of the town.
Yeah.
And so we'll present the plan to them. And we'll give them a sample resolution, say we need you to take this back to your council and have it approved. If you want us to be there to answer questions, we'll gladly be there.
Okay.
Have you done that in the past?
Yes.
Do you have any problems getting attendance? Really?
2019, they added the requirement of the annual visit of the Solid Waste Authority to look at alternatives.
Okay.
Because they wanted an annual plan. With the recommendation that was made, they were satisfied with the insertion of the language that there be annual review.
And we invite state representatives as well.
Okay.
So Chairman of County Council, Mayor, Administrators. That's what the policy council is made up of. And it's been that way since the first one was done, and we got to keep.
Okay.
If they even half of them show up, we got to continue.
Okay.
Yeah, so that box at the bottom is the remaining approval process. So December is what we're aiming for, to actually present the plan to the policy council. Then we gotta get through each of those approvals. So I do wanna ask the group what you prefer as far as setting the next meeting date. I know we tried, a Survey Monkey, we tried a few different things. What is the easiest way? Can we just send an email
To set it right now?
or set it now? That was, and I was trying to leave myself more than, a couple minutes, so that is my question. Would you guys want to try to find a date that we think works? At the bottom of your agenda, we had a couple of dates that we know works for us in the authority, and that was Tuesday, August 16th, Wednesday, August 17th. Otherwise, we gotta look further out. And, we obviously need a little bit of time to put together this information that we'll be giving you guys, so I don't think we can go sooner than that. But, what about this, does the 16th and 17th still work for the authority and us? And then for the rest of you, could either of those 2 days work? Do we want to try to do this now? Everybody's gonna pull out their.
Yeah, I mean, either
better than
day's,
most.
I'll email you to get to the,
either day's good for me, but the 17th's better, but
Yeah.
either day is fine.
Okay.
Tuesdays are always kind of tough.
Tuesdays, yeah, that might get me out of management staff meeting, though, I have an excuse not to go.
So what if I send out an email with Wednesday, the 17th as one possibility, and then look at some future Wednesdays a little later than that? Honestly, we put this agenda together like a month ago, so I think it's, we need to probably revisit. I'd love to get to that next meeting in August, or maybe if it's early September, we do our third meeting in late September, that we may try to crunch our schedule a little bit so that we're not trying to present the plan at the policy council meeting right at Christmas. We're trying to get to them, early in December, hopefully, or mid, or it's gonna get pushed into the new year. So that's our challenge, but is everybody okay with that? If I send out an email to the group, and we'll just do it by email, rather than trying to do Survey Monkey or anything, and you guys can just reply to me, let me know what works best for you guys for that next meeting. And is Wednesdays generally a good day? Okay, let me look at a few more Wednesdays in addition to the 17th. And we'll see what works for everybody to get to that second meeting. So I think with the last 2 minutes, any other final thoughts or comments today of what you might want us to bring back as far as information, or if anybody wanted to ask me to maybe email them the 2019 plan, if you haven't pulled that off the website yet, we can send it out if you want to read ahead. Anybody? You just gonna wait
We
till
can
I
get it on
send
the
it to you?
website. We can
You can get it on the website, so you can
like-
look at the
Like
plan.
this.
It's because of all of those approvals in the
Yeah.
back, it gets to be a very big document. So I could send one that doesn't have the appendices with it if you guys wanted a smaller version to look at, but, all right.
So you mentioned bans a minute ago, there are a couple of communities that have done plastic bag bans
Bands, okay.
at the retail level. Surfside's probably done a much better job than North Myrtle Beach, but our people keep pushing it out, pushing it out, pushing it out. They can't make their mind up.
Well, and have those have been implemented?
Yes,
Back bans?
there's a full ban in Surfside, a partial ban in North Myrtle Beach at the retail
And
level.
how's that going?
fairly well. I mean, we have the main grocers and a lot of places have stopped giving bags altogether, and some are giving paper bags. We've had a couple that have like walking the line. They've come up with the biodegradable plastic bags.
Or the
they're
heavy-duty
certified-
reusable plastic bags.
certified, because they're not single use, so they kind of like skirt
Yeah.
they have, biodegradable written on them, like from some supplier, which we all know is kind of like iffy on that, but.
Depends on where you put it when you're done, right?
Yeah.
If you leave it out in the sunshine, it'll biodegrade.
I've had vendors of these bags tell me if it's not exposed to the right amount of light and water and
It's
all that
not
stuff, it's
gonna
not
do
gonna biodegrade, but.
Exactly.
We haven't really, told them they can't use them, but, we're getting pretty good compliance from most of the businesses in town, so we've probably eliminated orders of the single-use plastic bags and, being given out in town, so it's probably a win.
Okay. Any other?
We've exempted ourselves from like, doggy bags and things like that we provide in the parks and things like that.
Dog waste bags, yeah, we have those too. So that's an ordinance as well.
The
And that was a
exemptions are only
statewide push for a while. I know Beaufort County's the only one, I think, that has a countywide ban. I don't know if any other cities in the state have any. But
So it's Surfside and who else? Who has the
North
authority?
Long Beach.
Right, well, that is good to know, and we can revisit the ban discussion to see if we want to recommend something at the county level or back to DHEC again, right, at the state level.
True.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments from the TAC? Any closing comments from the authority?
Forward to the next meeting.
I'll turn it back to Tom to officially adjourn.
I guess we need a motion to adjourn?
I don't know, have we ever done a motion to adjourn? I think you could just say.
That I adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll make it easy.
All right, thank you, everybody. Look for an email and send me back your data
Yeah.
stuff from the.
Thank you, Alan.
That's fine.